Hey cats, what's happening? I know I just gave you a bang up review of my Husqvarna YTH24K48. Got a 48 inch 4-foot mower deck. Got a 25 horse or 24 horse Kohler engine. The engine runs fine. Starts right up every time, runs like a champ, mows beautifully. But now I got another problem. The hydro transmission is starting to slip. So, in fact, just yesterday was the first time I noticed it. I took it out and I'm mowing, and I'm just pretty much grinding up leaves. But I thought, boy, I got the forward pedal like all the way down, and it seems like it's only going half the speed that it normally did. And it would go in reverse just fine, but when I tried to go forward, it just didn't seem to have the same speed. Well, the more I mowed with it, the more I realized something was wrong, because it wouldn't go up any incline. I took it down the driveway and I mowed down front, and just coming up the little grade in the driveway, it kept going slower and slower and slower, and then I made it up here. So anyway, in doing some online research, I found, to check a couple things. One thing, the first thing was to check this clutch, because sometimes grass gets and dirt gets caught up on the linkage there, and it won't allow this to release all the way. So I cleaned that out, and it didn't seem to be the problem. It was still doing the same thing, the same slippage. So now what I'm told to do is to check the transmission fluid in the hydrostatic transmission. There isn't a transmission, plug thing you can pull, though. It's a lot more complicated than that. There's no way to check the transmission level unless you drop the transmission. Yeah, so what I've got to do is jack it up. I've got to take both of the back wheels off, just to make it a little easier for me. Block it up, and then I think there's four or six bolts that I have to take off to drop the transmission axle out. It doesn't look like a major job, but still challenging nonetheless. And then once I drop it down, there's no real, plug that you can unscrew. It's a pressed in plug, so you have to get a hammer and a screwdriver and bing, 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 and try to pry that off there without damaging it, so you can knock it back in when you're done. And all that's going to do is check my transmission level. Now, best case scenario, it's a little low and I can add transmission fluid to it, and it'll be fine. Worst case scenario is I pull the plug out and it's still full of transmission fluid. Then I know the tranny is pretty much toast at that point. Now, you have to remember, a good part of my career and 44 years with the park system, before I became a project manager, I was on the operations crew, and I spent endless hours on mowers of every kind. So I'm well aware how they all work and how they all function. I've mowed with large tractors, I've brush hogged, but I've mowed with small tractors too, walk behind mowers, riding mowers, zero turn mowers of all different sizes. So I know how they work. And in my terrain, with my hills and my ditches and everything, zero turn is out of the question. Now, I had a zero turn. I had a Cub Cadet zero turn, and it performed horribly on my property. It just, I couldn't use that. And I mowed with it quite a few times, and every time there was a problem. Not with the mower itself, but with the terrain It would slide down the hills. When I went around trees, the outer wheel would leave a track, you know, where it dug up the grass. And I didn't want that. So the four-wheel version has served me much, much better. The thing with John Deere's is you're paying for the name John Deere. So you're going to pay a lot more for a mower that's of equal status. I never did like Cub Cadets only because my dad always had Cub Cadets and he always had one problem after another with them. And I just don't want to go with the Cub Cadet again. So I'd like to stick with the Husqvarna, and I'd like to stick with the same size tractor with the same size mower deck. It would be great to have a bigger, you know, $25,000 Kubota or something that I could whip around, you know, with a 6-foot mower deck, but it wouldn't do well in some of the, you know, tight areas around the house and some of the terrain that I have. So, I mean, if you had big open fields, that'd be great. But I have all these little small nooks and crannies and areas around, and especially down there where it slopes off on both sides. So actually a bigger machine wouldn't be of my best interest. It would mow, but it wouldn't do the nicer job that a smaller machine can you know, negotiate. I think I'd have a lot more push mowing if I had a bigger tractor. So that being said, I'd like to stick with the same thing. The problem is we're into mid-October, and I don't care where you go, you know, all the big box stores, all the Rural Kings, Tractor Supply, they have a very limited supply of these mowers on the floor right now. And they're all the ones that are undesirable that I don't want. I mean, you'll go to Tractor Supply and all they have lined up there are 0 turns. You go to Rural King and all they have is the leftover 0 turns, and I don't want a 0 turn. So, you know, all of these four-wheel models, and you can find them, but they're the smaller, you know, like with a real small mower deck. And, you know, I want the 48-inch. So the 48-inchers, I guess, are in higher demand because they can't be found anywhere right now. That means I got to wait till spring when the stores all restock their supply of mowers. Because right now I've been around and they got nothing that interests me, nothing even close. And I could order one. I could go online and find, and I did go online and find one, but then you're paying shipping charges because they're shipping it from Timbuktu, and I don't want the exorbitant price when I can wait till spring and get it for probably $1,000 less. So anyway, today I'm going to jack it up. I'm going to see if I can get the transmission off. Well, I am going to get the transmission out of there and see if I can troubleshoot this thing and get it back running again, because I'm going to have a lot of leaves to chop up here. They're going to start falling like crazy here pretty soon. Well, I got it blocked up now. I set the mower deck up on some 4x4s. I got the front wheels blocked so it can't roll anywhere. And it's pretty solid there. I don't think it's going anywhere. That'll allow me to get in there, take the wheels off, and then drop that transmission out of there. So I've got a circlip that I removed. And there's a washer that comes off. And then you can see it's got a keyway too there. So when I slide this wheel off, I want to make sure that I get the key out of there without losing it. All right, first thing I got to do, let's see. I got to take these 2 bolts off, drop them out from the bottom. There's two on each side, and then I think there's 2 in the front. And then I got to take this spring off here too, and disconnect that. So yeah, I got to get under there and see where those front 2 bolts are. And And then the other thing you want to make sure is that this thing, that's attached to the transmission too. This little lever that releases the transmission for pushing it when it's not running. Let's see a little picture there. You make sure that's pushed in and dropped down so that it doesn't catch there when you go to pull the tranny out. Well, when you do something for the first time and you've never done it before, you're always bound to find something that doesn't go to plan. So I've got it all unbolted and I started dropping it down, and then I realized that I've got to disconnect this linkage, the actual pedal linkage. So yeah, well, there it is. I got it off, and it does look like there is a screw check plug there where I can check the level. So I'm going to clean it up a little bit before I do that, because I don't want any dirt going inside there. Yeah. Now the deal is, can I, once I check it, determine what's going on there, then I got to figure out how I can put it back together again. Hopefully I get it back together the same way it came out. And I did find one bolt that was missing on the bracket that holds that thing also. You see this hanger? You got a bolt there. Well, on this side, you got nothing, and it's been moving. So I'll have to get another bolt for that before I can put it back together. Well, it turns out all this was a rubber cap that went over that, like a breather. And that's probably pressed in there, so I got to figure out how to get that out without damaging it. So all it is just a little rubber plug that you have to press out, and then stick something down in there and see if I can check the level of that fluid. It looks like it's way down though. Kind of hard to tell from here. It's a pretty small hole. I'm using my little Phillips screwdriver here, so I'm going to stick it down in there, and I pull it out, and there's barely a little bit of oil on the tip, right at that point. So that puts it down, to about that level right there. And I think it's supposed to be a little fuller than that. I think it's supposed to be almost up to the bottom of this lip, if I'm not mistaken. I might have to do some research on that, but I look around and I don't see any real seepage or leakage. I mean, it's pretty much covered with dirt and stuff, so it's kind of hard to tell. Might be a little where it seeped a little bit right there. Well, I'm going to need 20W50 synthetic oil to put in there, and I don't have any here. I got 5W30 and stuff for the car and the truck and transmission fluid, but apparently you don't put tranny fluid in these. You put 20W50. So that's the case. I'm going to have to take a trip to the store and pick that up. But while I'm there, I'm going to find that bolt that's missing. All right, an hour later, and I found the replacement bolt at Home Depot. They call these body bolts. They come to a point on the end, and the washer is kind of like molded right into the head. But this is a 5/16 inch 18 by 13/16. So what you do when you go to Home Depot, you take your old bolt, and they have like a tester panel there, with like bolt all the different size bolt heads sticking up that you could like screw your nut onto, or the corresponding holes that are threaded that you can take your old bolt and you find the one that it threads into, and it'll tell you that that's a 5/16 number 18. And then you go over to the bolt drawers and you look for the body bolts. You pull the drawer open, bink, right there. And so I got the exact same bolt. Oh, and then I also found they don't have this at Home Depot. If you needed motor oil, you don't go to Home Depot. So I had to go to the auto parts store, but I got this Lucas synthetic 20W50, and I'm going to put it in here. Now what I found out was that from the top of this fill, it should be about 1.5 inches to the level. So I've marked it there. The level here is down probably just a little more than 2 inches. So the level of the oil in here is a little bit low. So I'm going to add some, but first I'm going to get a little stick. I have some wood scraps over here. I can probably find something. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take this stick and I'm going to mark 1.5 inches on it so I know how far to dip it down in there. And when I get to that line and it shows up on the end of that stick, I'll know that it's at the right level. Well, that's a little tricky. It won't, it doesn't want to take it very quickly. So if you pour it just a little too fast, then it wants to overflow. Well, I marked 1.5 inches on that stick there, so if I put the stick down to where that line is, it's just starting to hit on the end of the stick. So I think I have put enough oil in there now. Let me check it one more time. Bink right to that line. Yeah. So I'm good. I'm going to put the plug back in. It's just a little rubber plug so I can push it all the way down there. Get that on. Plan B. I had to snap this back onto it before I can put that on. So that's how it should go. So I'm ready to go on that. I guess it's ready to put back in. One more thing that I thought about though, I was thinking about this missing bolt. And then look at this. Here's the bracket. And I mean, you can see there's a scratch on there where it's actually moved. So I'm thinking that it could have been possible that when I pushed that pedal, it could have been pulling on that and not allowing me to have full travel of that thing, because that linkage there has to be able to move this thing back and forth. When it comes back it's reverse, when it goes that way it's forward. So when I pull it forward, it might have just been shifting the whole thing and not allowing me to get the full travel. So I'll replace the bolt and we'll see what happens. I mean, that might be it, but hey, I topped off the fluid, so now the challenge of putting it all back together again, which is not going to be simple, but hey, I don't have any busted knuckles yet, but I probably will before all this is over. Alright, I've got it back on the jack, and now I have the pleasure of trying to get it back up on there again. See if I can get it bolted back up where it's supposed to be. I don't expect it's going to be easy either, but I got no choice but to get to it. I saved you about an hour of me fooling around, cursing. Yeah, I was spewing out some nice language. Trying to get that back on again. And these bolts here were easy on both sides, but it was these up under here that bolted the transmission to this bracket. Those would not line up for the life of me. I had a clamp, I pried, I twisted, I torqued. And like I said, I spewed out some nice, colorful language. That seemed to help. It helped me to relieve some frustration at any rate. But I got the belt back on. I got the electrical plugged back in. The springs hooked back up. So I'm ready to put the wheels back on now. So I do have the keyways for those. So I want to make sure that those go back on properly with the wheel. Well, I got it all back together, and I don't have any extra parts, so I'm pleased with that. Everything went back to where it was supposed to go. Now I'm going to take it down off the blocks, start it up, and pray that it works. If it doesn't, then it's pretty much trashed. I'm almost convinced at this point it was that bracket, because the actual bracket that I bolted to was kind of bent a little bit. So that would have twisted the whole thing and not allowed the full travel of the pedal. In fact, when I was pushing the pedal, it was probably torquing, that whole transmission to some degree. I mean, it was nothing that you'd be able to see or tell, but you could. The telltale sign was when I took it apart and I could actually see what was going on there. I'm not afraid to tell you, my back is stiff. My knees are sore from being down on the ground. My hands are black. So I'm going to get this thing down, test it out. I'll let you know what happens. Well, cats, although I would much rather be out riding on a beautiful autumn day like today, that job had to be done, and priorities come first. And somehow I managed to do it without any bloody knuckles. Yeah. Now I'm very happy because it was a success. I was able to get it fixed for about $15. Can you imagine what it would have cost had I taken that in somewhere? The labor alone would have been probably in the hundreds. And they probably would have found all kinds of stuff they would have charged me for. But anyway, it's done. I'm happy. I can get through the rest of the season, and in the spring, I'm looking forward to buying a brand new mower. Well, thanks for watching today and hanging out with me in the shop, in the man cave, getting a little bit of work done. That, you know, when those jobs come up, you dread it. You just think, oh man, I don't even know what's wrong with it. I'm going to do all that work and I'm going to get filthy, dirty, sore, bloody. You know, you just dread it. But once you get into it, you know, granted, if everything goes smoothly, which it did on this one, to the most part, except putting it back together was very, very difficult. I won't lie about that. But it's done. So now I can mow again. If you liked the video, give me that thumbs up. Hit that little thumbs up tab there. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe and continue to join me from one thing to the other. You know, that's done though. Now I can go out and ride. I think the weather's going to be like this all week. So, I mean, look at the beautiful colors. They're everywhere. So, you know, it's a good time to ride. You go down the road and the leaves blow across the road and the colors are so gorgeous. And it's like going to a fireworks show, you know. It's really nice. All right, cats, until next time, I'll catch you all later.